So I have to now make a decision. And my decision is, I know, absolutely, unquestionably for a fact, that the court has made judgments based on incorrect legal theory and stuff, which is just set in law. It's not a theory, it's just there's certain things law say you cannot consider in a summary judgment motion testimony from either side that both sides don't agree is accurate testimony. If one side or the other in summary judgment says that's contested, it can't be considered. And the testimony that the court considered in saying that the state currently meets everybody's need is contested and has been the entire time by me and my whole side. So the court made an illegal ruling. So I can have them throw it out and have to have it heard again. But the real question for me is, you know, we're going 7 years now. The state has destroyed thousands of documents, committed perjury. There have been inmates who work their way up through the grievance process, and the state, in evidence in this case, it's been shown that the state forged documents, threw away grievances to inmates who did exhaust that are going forward, and similar things like that. And yet the judges ruled that those inmates didn't exhaust their claims because the state threw their claims away and doctored them up and stuff to make them say something different than what they said. It's really complicated to figure out what to do. And of course it's a little discouraging, and it takes a really long period of time to go through these things. I don't know for sure, and it's something you can't sort out. You know, every case is different, but the odds are very high if I decide to move forward and go on to the Supreme Court that it'll be 8, 9, 10 years before I'll even get there, assuming that the court gives us certification, what's called cert, and allows us to go forward. And the court, even in legitimate cases, only allows a very small series of people to come forward. They sort of like it to boil up. Like what they'd like to see is other prisons discriminate against other pagan inmates, and other people file lawsuits, and those get lost until there's been 10, 20 different cases where it just gets to be such a big deal that people are marching in the streets and things, and then the Supreme Court likes to hear it. But I have legitimate issues to go forward to the Supreme Court. Prior to going to the Supreme Court, I can also do what's called Unblown. I can ask the Ninth Circuit to rehear my case, pointing out to them that they made some legal conclusions that are illegal to make, and that they at least need to hear those arguments again because it's a miscarriage of justice, and they could have my case heard by the entire court, and we'd get a lot more additional oral arguments and more documentation stuff be allowed to produce. But I really need to make that case in a really short period of time. There are some other avenues that are possible. It could be we could talk to the state and maybe reach some kind of an agreement or settlement, because they've spent a lot of money and time on this, and they may not want me to go forward either. But I really can't comment on any of those things at this time, because my attorneys and their attorneys and me and them are all deciding what it is we're going to do. Somehow, between talking to you tonight and maybe the next day to 2 days, I have to decide where I'm going. And I have to decide whether it would be better to try this case in the court of public opinion and really let everybody know all the particulars of the case, many which I can't speak about openly, or whether I should go ahead and press forward. But the thing that's most important to me is to know what my community would really like to have happen. Because several things that the community has gotten wrong on this case is, to begin with, there's really never been anything for me in the case. You know, people made arguments, the state has made arguments, put out press things, stuff about, you know, Patrick McCollum just wants a job. That's why he's trying to be a chaplain. But I quit a job making twice as much money as this job pays in order to continue fighting this case. So it's the most ridiculous argument in the world. And the other thing is that I never have argued that it's got to be me they hire. I just am arguing they got to create or consider a position And in fact, I've actually never argued that they have to hire anyone at all. All I've really argued is that they have to create a system where they fairly assess each thing based on needs and numbers and various qualifications, and that if they're giving something to somebody based on certain qualifications, and we as Pagan meets the qualifications, then they got to hire one of us also. That's really what the bottom line is. There's one other mistake a lot of people have made, and that is I've seen many headlines where it says, you know, Wiccan chaplain denied standing, you know, that the court did not find I had standing in my moving forward to apply for a position as a chaplain. And that is absolutely untrue. The people who are saying that need to read this case 2 or 3 times over. If you read the case, you'll see that the court found I do in fact have standing. And then they ruled that they would not let me go forward because they believe, wrongly I believe, that my standing can only be used forward after the inmates establish that they have to have a chaplain. So what the court has ruled in simple common terms is the inmates first have to take a case forward and prove that they, as pagans, need a chaplain, and that it's justified through some kind of criteria, and that if they prove that, then I could push my case forward and that they should be hiring me or somebody else as a chaplain. But one more thing. However, here's the catch-22 glitch to that. No one in the 5 faiths had to prove that they need a chaplain. Protestants never proven it, the Jews never proved it, Muslims never proved it, you know. None of them had to do it. So why do we have to come up to a different standard than everyone else? And that's what the Civil Rights Act and anti-discrimination laws are supposed to be all about. And I think that's a question that should really be on everyone's mind. Now, you had a question.
You actually just answered it, but I did want to ask you, for the average pagan, what can we do to support you? Can we write letters? Can we just raise awareness? What can we do to help?
Okay, there's a couple different things that you can do. People forget what this case is really about. The case is twofold. There is not a law that says that we can't be hired. Well, now that the court ruled, maybe there is. This is a question that's going to have to get pondered out. But there isn't and has not, as of yet, been set into law. A law says we can't be hired. So what the state is doing, our government, and it's happening in other states besides California, just so you know, they're not the only ones. This happens to be where this case is. But this case affects every state in the United States, right? So there's not a law making the state be a bad actor here. They're not following the law. In fact, they're going against the law. So even though I brought a court case forward trying to force them to follow the law, they work for you. They work for me. We are the people, they are our government, and we're the ones that determine what they're supposed to do. So we can apply pressure as the voters and the constituents under this state to them. And the ways we can do that is to write letters to the CDCR and say, we're pagans and we want a chaplain and we have requirements for that and we want you to put people in there, and if you don't do it, we're going to take whatever actions we can. Make them nice letters, but any of you guys that are politically, put in office, we're going to vote against you. You think you're going to be the next governor? Get yourself ready, because we're going to have a giant campaign. Yes.
Would you say directly going to the legislators would be...
Directly going to the legislators is an extremely valuable tool. The Attorney General's office, understand that under California Constitution, the Attorney General is required to represent us, the people, not the institution of the state. And yet they have acted in this case and some others as the state's personal lawyers. So they're defending the CDCR and those people, and it isn't them they're supposed to be defending, it's us. And so we can ask them to do their duty. We can write to the, the head of whatever. And if you're going to write, document that you wrote and forward documents to somebody. You could forward to me, because here's what happens. Many people told me before that they wrote to the state, and yet the state has not acknowledged. They're required to say any evidence that comes in, and they have not acknowledged receiving one single person contacting them about this issue. Yes.
And can it be, I mean, does it have to be California residents writing?
Absolutely not.
Anyone?
Yeah, because you have to understand what the issue is. This is a federal case. And while it's the state of California making the argument, the law that's being challenged is a federal law. And so, sure, from any other state, you can say you want it. And the other thing you should be doing is CCing your own prison system and this stuff, because other prison systems are looking to this case to decide what to do with the inmates in their case. And if you're not aware of it, these problems are common in almost every state. You know, so the same issue's coming up in every single one. So you also want the people in your own state to know it. But as U.S. citizens, you have a right to complain about this and to make it an issue. So everybody's voice counts.